teachers. They're in Europe, I guess, and here. And, so then he just wrote what the two things they're focusing on, and I forget the first, but the second was, how do Buddha's teachings help us live through this emergency? And when I use this word emergency, it reminds me of something Katagiri Roshi wrote, and he used the word emergency. But for me, it's like, I feel like I'm pretty dumb because I don't have like a especially new answer to that, or an answer that's tailored to the coronavirus. For me, the answer is always, Zen is always about life and death. Now that can be a downer for some people in bright days, or even in gloomy days, but that's really always what it's about. And it doesn't have to be gloomy, because what Zen is always asking is, who are you? When you know who you are, then you know what is life and death. And when you know that, then you know there isn't really life and death in the way we think about it as some very solid, scary things to be nervous about. You know what is life and death. And then you lose all fear of death, and you know how to live. And that's just the way it always is. That's the basic teaching. So I think it's very, very relevant to what we're going through right now, the coronavirus. But I feel that it's as if, Buddhist teachers have always said, this is an emergency. You don't get it. This is an emergency. In fact, I was just going to read this at the end, but I'll do it right now. I can't find it. But basically what it's saying is, we're always living through an emergency. Our life is an emergency because we're going to die. And don't you want to know what everything is going to be about before you die? And Katagiri Roshi says it's so much better than me, and that's why I'm trying to find it. Here it is, sorry. How do you live in this complicated reality? How do you face the moment when the earthquake suddenly happens? Now, before that, he talked about living through an earthquake in Japan and how all these monks and teachers disappeared. So we don't have an earthquake, but we have a pandemic. How do you handle yourself in a moment that is beyond your control? When a moment appears, there's only one thing that controls you, the capability that comes from your spiritual practice. Your ability to face impermanence and deal calmly with the conditions of each moment. So before the earthquake, before the pandemic happens, before your mind starts to work and you want to run away, accept every moment as an opportunity presented to you to practice facing reality as it really is. When a moment arises, you don't know the reason why it exists, but you accept it and face it, whatever happens. And then he writes, life is an emergency case. Where is the emergency? Is it a particular situation? One day of your life? No, every moment of every day is an emergency. You have to do your best to face every moment, because this moment will never come again. The moment you are living right now is a very important opportunity to make your life vividly alive. If you want to live with spiritual security in the midst of constant change, you have to burn the flame of your life force in everything you do. If you think that you have lots of time and many choices in your life, You don't believe me when I say that you have to pay attention to every moment. Maybe you will realize it if you become sick, but there is no guarantee that you will be able to face that situation with a calm, secure mind of equanimity, because you cannot get that capability overnight. And then he refers to Dogen. That's why Dogen always emphasized that life is impermanent, using expressions such as time passes quickly and birth and death is the vital matter. Dogen really wants you to take care of your life constantly, wherever you are, whatever you are doing. So that sense of an emergency is nothing special in Zen, because that is really the term that Dogen uses all the time. Now, towards the end of being time, I was going to read a long passage of his, but it is long, and I'm wondering if I should do it anyway. But it is all about raising eyebrows or not raising eyebrows. So, as you know, Dogen is very, very dense, but there is something important about it. Bear with me. We should say half reaching of mind. So reaching, in his words, is really, really manifesting the moment. And I'll go into what that means. He also talks about half reaching. And half reaching is for most of us who don't do that every moment. So that's like a half reach. You know, did I really penetrate? Did I really plunge into a moment? Did it really come alive for me, as Gary Roshi wrote? Half. That's what you'll hear. Half reaching of mind and word is also being time. Half not reaching of mind and word is also being time. Your investigation must go on like this. Letting him raise his eyebrows and blink his eyes is a half being time. Raise eyebrows and blinking eyes is just day-to-day work, day-to-day activity. Letting him raise his eyebrows and blink his eyes is a wrong being time. Not letting him raise his eyebrows and blink his eyes is a half being time. Not letting him raise his eyebrows and blink his eyes is a wrong being time. And I really wanted to read the passage because of his use of the word wrong. So we talked about Dharma position a couple of months ago already. And Dharma position, I'll just remind you, is just every single moment that exists. So, and your presence of each moment. You're filling each moment fills you. That's a Dharma position. So let's say, and the Dharma position has two components. So one is called the particular or the relative, some people like to say, or, you know, just the personal. So in that component is that right now I am speaking, I am looking at my computer, I'm looking at some people in the rectangles. That's this peculiarity or particularity piece of Dogen, of Dharma position. And that's where most of us really stand. We stand, oh, I know what this is. I'm here in my bedroom and where I'm, you know, and computer, and my mouth is dry and the dog is scratching on the door. That's where most of us stand. And more important, that's out of that is how most of us live. And by that, I don't mean that we're looking always to protect ourselves or feed ourselves. I mean that the basic modality of thinking is that I am the subject, and the rest of life is something that is around me and happens to me or interacts with me, but I'm always at the center. That's really the way our mind functions. The second component of Dharma position is that, yes, you are your own self, but you are also completely interpenetrating and interrelating with everything else. That's what you are. And that's that term empty. You are not that solid, separate self called Eve or Amy or Robin or whatever it is. You are something else. You are actually the whole world. You are all of life. And when you really get that, that's when you understand what emptiness is. It's when you understand that impermanence has to be, is what is going on, is the reality, because everything is changing all the time. Therefore, you are changing all the time, and there is nothing permanent. And then the question is, can you live out of that? And that's where I think Zen practice comes in. It really asks you to live out of that. That's the challenge. Always, can you live out of that? And I think about it now with the coronavirus. As you know, there were a lot of pictures of young people cavorting and having a great time on the Florida beaches a few weeks ago in spring break. And I really feel a lot for younger people because, you know, they're the ones who go out. They go to movies, they go dancing, they go to parties, they go to nightclubs. They just go out and have a good time. And they just can't do that now at all. For me, it's not such a big deal because I don't go out much. But I have a 21-year-old housemate, and you know, she's attractive. She wants to live. She wants to go out with her boyfriend. She wants to do things, and instead she roller skates on her own, and you know, on one of the roads down by Amherst. So, you know, the people who were cavorting there on the Florida beaches, they were standing in themselves and saying, you know, we want to have a good time. We know if we want to drink, we want to drink. If we want to party, we want to party. That's what we're going to do. That's kind of a very, almost a little obnoxious example of what it is to just stand in your own self. But so many people are standing and acting now out of something else. They're acting out of the fact that they know they affect other people. They're going to make somebody else sick. This is a very special thing. We don't always see that. And it's extraordinary and very moving to me, especially how many younger people. Oh yeah, I spoke with someone in California today and she said, you know, it's amazing how many younger people are wearing masks and they're so careful and they look at me with a lot of care because even if they don't know me, I really register as an older woman and they don't want to make me sick. And that is an amazing realization. You know, really get what people realized. People realized that their activity has a life and death effect on other people, people they don't know, strangers, but they know that and notice they act out of it. I mean, that's what our practice is all about, frankly. Only it'd be nice if we didn't do it under the shadow of the virus. It'd be nice if that realization didn't leave us when the virus leaves. Our practice is to keep that going day by day. And how do you know that this is what you're doing? So as I like to remind you so often, Bernie Glassman used to say all the time that you can tell a person's realization or state of enlightenment not by their titles and not by how many books they wrote and not by any of that. You can tell that from their actions. It's really very simple. Your actions will always tell people what you're acting out of. You see what I'm saying? And how you're acting. Everything else won't matter. That's what it comes down to. So the same thing here when we say, what am I acting out of right now? And how do I tell? And well, let's see, if Dharma position, there's a part of it that's me, and there's a part of it that's me as the whole world. How do I know what part I'm acting out of? You don't have to worry about any of that. Your actions will very naturally and organically reflect who you are and how you see yourself and how you see your life. You really can't fake it. And I know there's a lot of ritual in Zen, there's a lot of all kinds of things. So we watch people do these beautiful gestures and these beautiful movements. And for a short while, we may think that that's it. And they're very realized people. But in the end, it's going to be your day-to-day actions that are going to reflect to you and the rest of the world who you really are. So just a page after that opening thing of Dogen, there's a wonderful koan that appears. Excuse me. Konyi of Tianping, during his traveling, visited Siming Monastery. He used to say, don't say that in the present time you can encounter the Buddha Dharma. He said, you can't in modern days, you won't find the Buddha Dharma. You won't find the real teachings. One day, Tianping came out of the Dharma hall. Abbot Ziwan Siming called out to him, Tianping. Tianping looked up. Ziwan said, wrong. Tianping took a few steps. Ziwan, the abbot, said, wrong. Tianping went close to him. Ziwan said, are these two wrongs my wrongs or your wrongs? Tianping said, my wrongs, master. Ziwan said, wrong. Tianping gave up. Ziwan said, senior monastic, stay here for a while and let us examine these wrongs. Let us examine these wrongs. Tianping walked away. I love that last sentence. Let us examine these wrongs. So here's somebody who says, there's no more Buddhist teachings. See, Dogen would laugh at that. Now, it is true that many Buddhists believe that what Buddhist teachings are, or what enlightenment is, or what practice is and realization is you just keep on doing Buddhist practices lifetime after lifetime and after lifetime. And then one day, if you live long enough, and after about 100 million lifetimes, you will be enlightened and you will leave the circle of samsara, the circle of life and death, of suffering. But that was not Zen the way Dogen saw it. Dogen saw practice and enlightenment right now, this moment. So for somebody to come and say, there's no more real genuine teachings nowadays, Dogen would be the first to laugh. He'd say, you're kidding me? Your life is where it is. Right here, your life is the teachings. The question is, can you get it? Are you open to it? Are you open to it? That's really what it is. You don't have to do anything, but can you let go of the right, wrong, good, bad, that modality of thinking that I described earlier that we all share as human beings? Can you let go of it? That's what you have to do. If you can let go of that, you'll see their teachings are in your life. Do that. Can you do that? So you see, when this man in the koan says, there's no more teachings, Dogen would laugh. And he would laugh even now when some people say, we don't have real teachers anymore. They died. We left them in Asia. The West is just a rotten form of Buddhism. Dogen would laugh. He'd say, that's not what this is about at all. Anyway, the man comes to the monastery, and so the abbot calls him. And he tells him, and whatever the guy does, the abbot says wrong. And the guy says, he takes another step. The abbot says wrong. Takes another step, the abbot says wrong. And finally he looks at him and says, so tell me, my dear student, whose wrongs are these? And student doesn't get it. He says, they're my wrongs, because that's a nice thing to say if you're a student. You're not going to say the teacher's wrong, are you? He says, they're my wrongs. And the teacher says, wrong. And then he says, come, let us study together. I forget how he wrote it here. Stay here for a while. Let us examine these wrongs. I mean, this is a teaching right here. Stay here for a while. Stay in your life. And let us examine these wrongs. What is wrong? What is wrong? There are just too many of us who spend a lot of our energy saying, oh, I was wrong. He was wrong. She was wrong. The other day, I guess I must have been on Facebook, and I saw a post by a woman whose name I knew, but I don't know that I've ever met her. And she was very angry. And she says, all you spiritual people who talk about what an important time this is, and your time of solitude, and your time of reflection, and that some of you are really enjoying this time. Do you know how other people suffer? Do you know what's going on in the world? How dare you feel like that? How dare you talk like that? How dare you say things like that? It shows how callous you are and how out of the world you are. She wrote this whole post. And I read it, and I felt like the abbot. I felt like saying wrong. Now, maybe I felt like that because it was a beautiful day. Yesterday was a beautiful sunny day. And there were goldfinches at the feeders, and flowers were coming out. And, tell me, is it wrong to feel that life is beautiful, even in the middle of a pandemic? Is it wrong to feel, I feel good? I'm not negating the fact that others don't feel good. And yet, this moment, I feel good. Tell me, is it wrong? Is it right? What do those labels that we constantly use have anything to do with the depth of the experience? Even today, I went to Turner's Falls, and for an hour, I met, illegal families because I had gift cards for food for the 2 supermarkets that I was bringing, and also some cash for a whole other need that somebody had a bad need for housing. And so I met about 10 different people, 10 different families came out, and it was very sad. So does that mean that my experience yesterday was wrong? Did yesterday's experience mean that my experience today, listening to people speak and my barely able to talk in Spanish, conversation about their children and how many children they have, and is anybody sick, and is the husband working, and what are they doing with the kids because they don't have Wi-Fi and they don't have tablets, so they can't do school, and on and on and on. Did one thing make it right and one thing make it wrong? Nothing. It has nothing to do with it. And yet, please pay attention how much those things just chase us down. How much we think that, because of our karma, because of our history, I fought in that war. I made that bad decision. I made the wrong marriage. I found the wrong work. I did this was wrong. This was wrong. This was wrong. So, what has that got to do with this moment right now? The really beautiful news about this kind of teaching is that it doesn't matter what happened yesterday. And it doesn't matter what happened a year ago or 10 years ago. It doesn't matter. This moment is now. Always this moment. You can change everything, turn the page. You don't have to, live through all that karma and atone for all that karma and do purification and more purification ceremonies for all that karma. Not in Zen, you don't. Maybe in other traditions, yes, but not in Zen. No, what you have to do in Zen is that this moment, what happens? Can you fully live this moment? And by fully live, meaning what? That you see it's all Buddha nature. Even the wrongest thing you encounter that in your mind is wrong, it's all Buddha nature. Everything. I don't care who's in the White House. I don't care what's happening with the pandemic. It's all from the point of view of the oneness, of the one big circle, which excludes nothing, which has no diameter, because a diameter is non-existent. If it includes everything, there can't be an inside or an outside. From the point of view of that one body, there's nothing wrong and there's nothing right. And it doesn't matter what happened in the past. None of that. It's all comes to fruition this moment. And can you live out of that, out of this one body, that Dharma position that isn't just about you, but about everything? Can you live out of that moment after moment after moment? And sometimes you do quite well, and that's what Dogen refers to as reaching. And sometimes we don't, we are not that conscious, and that's when Dogen refers to it as half reaching. And we basically do our best. But that is the practice. Yes. Let me say this. So there's Buddha nature is all that. That's reality. Does that mean now everything goes? No. The question is, do I experience it as Buddha nature? And that's when Dogen calls it Buddhahood. There's Buddha nature, which is reality as it is. But do you see it as that? Or do the wrongs and the rights come up? How do you experience it? Can you stay a while and let's play with these wrongs? What is wrong here? What was wrong about your life? Can we do that? When we can start doing that and letting go of the rights and the wrongs and all that, at that point, we begin to see Buddha nature. And that is the practice of Buddhahood, meaning I'm beginning to act out of what I see. I'm acting out of my understanding. I'm acting out of what I myself have realized. That is Buddhahood. Buddha nature exists everywhere, whether you see it or not. We say that in the service, if you remember. But Buddhahood is up to us. That's where the practice is, to realize and to constantly practice with each moment. And what's important to see here is it's not about ultimately the practice of gaining Buddhahood. So it's not about doing something. Life as it is Buddha nature. don't worry about life as it is. It's Buddha nature, whether you see it or not. It's going to go on, or it doesn't go on, but whatever it is, it's Buddha nature. It's there. It was there before you. It was there before all conditions began. It doesn't matter. What our job isn't to gain something or to find Buddha nature or anything like that. Our job is just to let go of that narrow modality of thinking. And then what we find is that things, as Dogen often writes, they realize themselves. They just kind of seem to take care of themselves. Things self-liberate. There's many, many layers to this whole expression of self-liberation. Does it mean, that we don't have to do anything? Not at all. I think we always are acting out of our understanding that we are all one, that we are all this Buddha nature, but we're acting out of that. But ultimately, when you see that, even that action by itself has to be based on the sense that it's all one body and it's just doing its thing. What I want to do is to bring my actions in congruence with that one body. That's my practice. Am I bringing on realization and enlightenment, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that? Well, I think the practice of letting go is quite a challenging one. It really is a challenging one. In the next, I just recently paid attention to the fact that middle May is the memorial date for Maezumi Roshi, and it will have been 25 years since he died in May. And I was just reading a wonderful collection of his talks, which I'll actually relate to in just a minute. And I found a talk, it's fairly short, but it just captures his tone. And I want to read it on the day of his 25th memorial. And now I don't remember why I brought him up. Okay. But I think you got the flavor of what it is I'm saying. I wanted to say, I came across this wonderful koan that I don't know this koan, but he mentioned it. And I just wanted to read it because there's a wonderful metaphor there that I just think is fantastic. And I've been loving it ever since I came across it. So it's a nice story, and I'll just read it to you. It's called the Sutra of the 7 Wise Women. These 7 wise ladies in India were of a noble family, aristocrats of the Brahmin class, rich and well established. They didn't do much. Everything was taken care for them by someone else. And they just amused themselves. Then one of these days, one of these 7 wise ladies told the others, they might be sisters. This is Maezumi Roshi saying this. They could be sisters, but not necessarily blood sisters. She said, today, instead of going to parties, let's go to the crematory. I have a feeling that something nice will happen. Could you imagine, instead of going to the cafe, have a cup of cappuccino, instead of going to the bar, have a glass of white wine, let's go to the crematorium. I think something nice will happen. So anyway, the 7 of them go to the crematory and they see a corpse. And one lady asks 6 others, a dead corpse is here. Where did the man go? So you see, I started this evening saying, yeah, I guess Zen talks about life and death all the time. So here it is. They went to the crematorium, found a dead body, and the woman asks, a dead corpse is here. Where did the man go? So by hearing that, it said that all of them attained realization together. The story goes that Indra, the Lord of the heavens, was watching, and he was very pleased. He made rain of flower petals with fragrance, celebrated them. He came down and asked them, you are marvelous. I would like to give you something in reward. What do you want? Now, these ladies were born in rich families. They didn't need too much. So they said, practically, we have everything as far as our life goes. We are well provided for. We don't particularly want anything. But if you really want to give us something, we should like to have 3 things. And Indra said, tell me what they are. And they said, first, please give us the rootless tree. The rootless tree. Second, please give us a land where there is no yin or yang. No opposites, no right and wrong, no labels of any kind. No regrets of labels of any kind from the past. And finally, we should like to have an echoless valley. Isn't that beautiful? An echoless valley. That has just stayed with me for a week now. A valley of no echoes. What is it to have a valley of no echoes? An echoless valley. Think of your mind. I think of my mind, of my life, and all the echoes that are resonating, resonating, and resonating, and resonating, especially at this time of solitude, huh? There's different kinds of solitude, and one solitude is a valley of echoes and echoes and echoes and echoes. That's one valley. That's one form of solitude. But a second form of solitude is an echoless valley, where now the lack of distractions is wonderful because there's just always this moment in front of me, filling me as I fill the moment, full presencing all the time, with no echoes, no comments, no judgments, no labels, no wrong, none of that. Every moment becomes an echoless valley. Isn't that just beautiful? So that's what I wish for you and for myself. I wish that for the remainder of this time, of our time in our homes, of sheltering in place, as we say it, that we shelter in an echoless valley that is going to be far more fertile and green than our usual valley of lots of voices and self-centered concerns. But let us live in an echoless valley together, even in solitude. Okay. Dat is das, as Bernie used to say it. I think he got that from me, though. That's that. That's what he used to say. Eve always says, that's that. And then he started saying that. Well, that's that. So there's a number of things. First of all, is anybody want to have any questions or comments or connection with anything that came up with what I said till now? Just unmute, you can unmute yourself, or if you want, I guess I can unmute you.